lost the finals of states last weekend. He's got a regional PTQ to play in next weekend. He's made some deep GP runs as well. He is young and he is good. He's playing against Dustin Taylor, who's a former Standard Open champion here in Providence, 2012. Got the job done with green-red aggro during the blue-white Delver era. So success is something that is not a stranger to Dustin as we are underway here in our semifinals. Taylor with a Temple of Malady. Top card stays on top. Tomajko just does a Forest. Passes the turn back as our semifinals is underway here from Providence. It's a Llanowar Waste. There's a Sylvan Caryatid there for Taylor. Tomajko will play a Windswept Heath. Sacrifice that. Go down to 19. And I imagine we'll have a Plains coming, though. Could be a Forest.
It's very important for both of these players to be able to grease the wheels with their graveyard. Seder Wayfinder, very important card. Commune with the Gods, that's a card in Oliver's list that's not in Dustin's. But these decks play a pretty low-powered, fair version of Magic when they're not doing much with their graveyard.
Commune with the Gods. Let's see some cards. Sylvan Caryatid, Den Protector, Sandstep Citadel, Sylvan Caryatid, and Hero's Downfall. See what Oliver wants to take for him.
This is a pretty straightforward decision. Do you need mana or not? Because Den Protector is very powerful. The game's going to go on for a long time. If he needs mana, he needs mana.
Seems like he may need some mana. Caryatid is a selection. Go Taylor. Take a draw. Picked up a copy of Opulent Palace. He'll play Frontier Bivouac. It's Caryatid. Pass that turn back. Colors and mana will not be a problem here for Dustin, it seems. Llanowar Waste. Perhaps we'll see a Thoughtseize here from Oliver. Looks like we will. It'll be a painful one. He'll have to take 3 to cast it. You see Dustin's hand. He loses his Tassiger. The rest of the hand is just lands. An Opulent Palace, Frontier Bivouac, and a Forest. Plenty of big draws available, though.
And if Oliver selected Sylvan Caryatid last turn over Den Protector, probably implies a lot of spells in his hand.
Yep. There is that Caryatid. Pass the turn back over to Taylor. Taylor will take a draw. He'll play an Opulent Palace. He'll pass the turn back over to Oliver. Oliver will untap. He'll take a draw step. Let's copy a Temple of Malady. Also has a basic Forest in hand, so land's not going to be an issue here.
Modern players, one last reminder as we find our seats for the 8th and final round.
It's a morph. Pass that turn back. Taylor will draw.
A match of the game of Magic. Arm wrestling is not an option.
Play Frontier Bivouac, pass the turn back. Keep in mind that red splash here in Dustin's deck. 2 copies of Dragonlord Tarkin.
It is a card in theory that can catch Dustin up, but Oliver is capable of making this game about card advantage and attrition, that even if Dustin draws very well here, he's going to be able to loop Hero's Downfalls or just trade 2-for-1 with particular things. So Dragonlord Tarka is potentially a big draw, but Oliver has a lot of control over the pace of the game and can make cards like that a lot less effective if he wants them to be.
Den Protector unmegamorphed to return Den Protector. Sidisi on Dead Vizier was the draw. And see, now you can play Sidisi, sacrifice the Den Protector, and then get the Den Protector. That's
a loop. Whew. Basically an infinite combo.
Oh boy.
Of 8, you may begin.
The Den Protector is busted.
Pretty good rate on Eternal Witness.
Card's really good. Here's the DC. Gonna Murderous cut that with Exploit on the stack. Smart there by Taylor. Temple Malady, take a look at the top card.
So Oliver can just keep Den protecting. Unless Dustin gets something really powerful and or proactive going, none of these kind of removal spells matter in the long term.
Den Protector also just slipping by the old Sylvan Caryatids here. Let's see what Dustin has. He's got a Torrent Elemental. Oliver will untap and draw. Of Courser of Crew fix the draw.
Tornamon's one of the funkier one-ofs in Dustin's list. Very powerful alongside Whip of Erebos. Good with delve spells.
Sweet card. Big fan of this card. Murderous Cut. Tornamental, please leave.
Yeah, and Oliver can keep pushing his advantage here with Den Protector, which can't be blocked, and can still play the card advantage game as well, again, with the Den Protector, so just has a ton of control over the pace of the game.
It's a morph. It could be anything.
Could be anything. Only 2 of these in Oliver's lists and doing some work here game 1.
They sure are. And we're wasting just passing the turn here from Taylor. Looks like he's a little flooded. I think we might see an unmegamorph here. We will. There's a counter. What are we going to rebuy? Murderous Cut is the weapon of choice. Michael will draw a card. Copy a Temple of Malady.
And if Oliver went and got back a removal spell instead of Sidisi, I suspect that means he has Whip of Erebos and wants to leave Sidisi in the graveyard for that purpose.
Pretty good read. Here are the attacks. 6 lifelink.
Because Sidisi is definitely the highest raw power card in the graveyard there, especially with Dustin having no targetable board. But it's also very good to get back with Whip of Erebos, naturally.
The follow-up is Commune with the Gods. A Courser, a Cut, a Temple, a Satyr Wayfinder, and a Sandsep Citadel. There's a Satyr. The rest will go to the bin. Wayfinder to the grip, Temple of Malady, take a look. Bottom shelf, go Taylor's way. And Taylor has drawn very many spells this game, so you will concede the game. Oliver Tomajko is going to win game number 1 here over Dustin Taylor. Obs on Reanimator up a game here with Sultai Reanimator as Dustin's going to have to go to the board.
That's about as fast as this matchup is going to go.
It really is.
Yeah.
I did not expect to see game 1 take 7 minutes. Believe you me. As we take a look at the sideboards, we will see that Dustin does have a Hornet Queen, a Merciless Executioner, a Reclamation Sage, a Soul of Innistrad, a Doomwake Giant, 3 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Ultimate Price, Freaky God of Affliction, 2 Drown in Sorrow, a Thoughtseize, and a Treasure Cruise. I think we're in for a much longer game 2.
Yeah, he can really settle in here with more removal, more card advantage, and some threats that are just good at playing a longer game. So Treasure Cruise, Thoughtseize, Freaky God of Affliction, Disdainful Strokes, the Soul of Innistrad, Reclamation Stage is a good answer to Whip of Erebos, and can also be a good tempo play against Courser Crewfix. The Hornet Queen come here as well, so settle in for a longer one.
2 Arbor Colossus, 4 Fleeceman line, a Master of the Unseen, 2 Boblight, 2 Ultimate Price, Utter End, Freaky God of Affliction, 1 Glare of Heresy, and 1 Thoughtseize.
I mean, much the same story here. Thoughtseize, Freaky God of Affliction, Utter End. Past that, I'm not really in love with very much. I think Master of the Unseen is a little low impact for this kind of matchup, even if it's a bit on the slower side. Also, Dustin's bringing in a Reclamation Stage, which makes it a little bit worse. The removal spells I'm not that interested in, so I think Dustin's probably getting the better of it here in the sideboardy games.
Very quickly, we will talk about SCG Game Night. Talk about the next couple of months. We're in April right now, so of course you can go and get the kittens if you go participate.
Yeah, you can look on the website and find the store that's running Game Night closest to you. Every month we come out with a new set of pins and foils to be given out at your local store. The stores can manage this program however they want to, sanctioned, unsanctioned, whatever format, just to get players in the store for some fun and friendly magic. This is the April kit. Next month in May, the Killer Bees are on the loose, much to Cedric's chagrin. It is too late to get signed up for May, but if you would like to get your hands on the much cuter May kit, some bunnies, head over to starcgames.com/game night for more information.
Put those on the loose.
Much.
Nobody would care if bunnies were on the loose.
A truck tips over and 14 million bunnies come out. Everyone's pretty happy.
I'd drive over there.
14 million bees, less so.
Yes. Like, all I'm saying is what I'm unhappy about makes sense.
Yeah.
That's all.
It is frightening. I mean, if a truck tipped over in front of you on the freeway and then bees started coming out.
To be fair,
horrifying.
If a truck full of 14 million bunnies tipped over and all those bunnies came out, I'd actually be really scared.
Yeah, that's actually pretty horrible too. They would also just ravage the countryside.
Yes.
It's cuter, but actually worse.
That would actually be really scary if 14 million anything just came running at you, I think. So, even though bunnies are really adorable, I think I would still be a little scared. One thing to note about what we see here between these two Reanimator decks, it's like they're almost playing kind of a different world, right? Like the Pro Tour, we had blue-black control decks, and we had Tarka Red win the Pro Tour, and we've seen decks like Green-Red Dragons. It's interesting when you get in kind of like this whip-based metagame. I think of the Open Series in Portland at the back end of last year, where Jerry T and Glenn did really well, and Brad made the finals with Jeskai tokens. But we see a card like Farika God of Affliction in the sideboard of each of these decks, and that card plays a huge role in this matchup.
So to me, these decks, they're pretty similar. They're kind of up to the same thing, which is be able to play kind of a conventional game plan, but also have Whip of Erebos and just some general graveyard synergies as a trump if the deck goes late. To me, these decks are the king of the mid-range mirror matches. If you are looking to ratchet up your mid-range matchup, you can do no better than going to decks like this. I think where you suffer potentially is that you're a little bit worse against Dissolve because your deck's slower and less streamlined. The Whip of Erebos can be a trump of those matchups. And you are poorer against very linear beatdown decks because your deck's going to be a little clunkier and require a little bit more setup. But if you're looking to beat other Abzan decks, other Sultai decks, decks like Mardu and so forth, I think some style of this deck is the best thing you can be doing.
It's just really interesting that you can see that like the players are kind of preparing for themselves a little bit.
Yes, this is ratcheting up to beat similar decks.
Yeah.
And the sideboard is much of the same story. A lot of these slots, at least in Dustin's sideboard, are committed to being able to win, if not the mirror match necessarily, then to continue to ratchet up the pain against other mid-range decks.
Dustin, a pretty good friend of Ross Merriam's, the sideboard that Ross played very, very close to what Dustin's playing this particular weekend. And we saw when we watched Ross had the Dragonletter Tarka, the Frontier Bivouac, and the Manic Influence, just like Dustin does, excuse me. So very similar deck list, even though Ross didn't have the finish that he was looking for to catapult himself further into the Season 2 race. Dustin doing it kind of for him here.
Still, for Ross, a day 2 finish, and kind of petered out there. Don't know if he ended up cashing or not, but it's still not a horrible performance. He still won more matches than he lost. It's just not good enough to make the top 8.
Yeah, Ross with a 29th place finish. So
Okay.
top 32. Healthy amount of Open Series points as he keeps clawing up. We'll see if we see him in Cleveland next weekend. I know we'll see Gerard Fabiano and Andrew Boswell there, and some of the Cleveland faithful. Very excited, actually. I'm trying to contain a little bit. I'm very excited.
I can tell.
Perhaps we'll run into LeBron. Good friend of mine.
I think it'll probably be in Boston at that point.
Yeah, the series might be over by then. It's unclear.
Not by Friday. They space out the games too much.
They may concede by Game 3.
Come on.
Might
man.
just want to wave it off. Just call it like I see it. Let's just save everyone a little time. Okay? They can't win. We can't lose. The only thing that could go wrong is if someone on my team gets hurt.
You got to play the games.
Fine.
There's no 100-0 matchups. Got to play the games out.
Howling Owl versus Zoo is 100-0.
Got to play the games, man.
It's 100-0. They let Antron Ruel have an ancestral recall during the top 8 of a Pro Tour because the matchup was that bad. Okay? Come on.
Still got to play the games.
Come on.
The story, the bigger the upset, the sweeter the story. So you just got to play them out.
It's actually one of my favorite Pro Tour stories that I don't think a lot of people know about.
The free ancestral.
Yeah, but they actually just gave him when he was already down 2 games, or I think it was like 2-0, they gave him ancestral recall, just let him cast on himself. He was playing Kitsu because I can't win, so who even cares?
One of the bolder metagame calls of all time.
That's what makes Magic so awesome. Going to that tournament, it's so tough to pull the trigger on that. I'm going to play this really linear deck that can't beat what might be the most popular deck at the tournament.
You can't win them all anyway.
I love it. I love it. It's like at Pro Tour Hollywood where Revelark was a really bad choice because they couldn't beat fairies, but 2 of them made the top 8.
Yep.
You don't play against that many fairies decks, you destroy everything else.
I mean, the most distorted Pro Tour of all time was probably Mercadian Mass Block Constructed. And I think even in that tournament, Rebels was only, I say only, but it was, 40 or 50% in the room? And that's by far the most dominant performance. The Affinity Block Pro Tour, where you could have played Skull Clamp, Aether Vial Affinity, was still a third of the room or something. So even your best decks are, you play a 15-round Pro Tour, the best deck in the room, maybe you play against it 3 or 4 times. So you can make calls like that.
I know Jun did Pro Tour Return of Ravnica and Jun did Pro Tour San Diego that Luis Exo the Swiss through was very popular. I don't know the exact percentage there, but it was horribly popular both times.
Yeah, you would, a third of the room is insane.
Yeah.
That's like, Cobblade numbers.
Yes. Outlandish. We don't see that nowadays in our standard opens, that's for sure.
But a third of the room is still, 1 out of your 3 matches. So 2 out of 3 times if you're beating the rest of the room, that's not bad.
Fleece main line here for Oliver.
So these came in out on the board.
Yep. Taking the aggressive approach. We saw some players do this at Grand Prix Memphis.
It is a low impact card if the board gets clogged up, which occasionally it does. But if the game is about just playing lands as creatures and creature removal spells, instead of just being all about the graveyard, Fleece main line can be very powerful.
Blue Deltas will be sacrificed here by Dustin. I think we may see Island Swamp. Dustin trying to figure out exactly what he wants to get here. We'll get 2 swamps instead. Already has 2 blue sources, I suppose, in play in Frontier Bivouac and Opulent Palace.
And you may want to do something like Downfall and Cut in the same turn.
Yep.
So cast and activate Whip of Erebos in the same turn. There's reasons he would want a lot of black mana.
Looks like Sidisi Brew Tyrant. Yes. Trigger. Dragonlord Atarka. Tassiger. Another Sidisi. Zombie Token. Passing of the turn. Origin Tomajko. Sandsam Citadel on top of the deck. Fleece main line, what's the draw? Satyr Wayfinder in hand here as well. Gonna start with the Sandsam Citadel. Trigger the Courser, gain a life up to 21. Windswept Heath on top of the deck now. Here's the attack with Fleece main line. There's your trade.
I would say that counts as a success for Oliver there with the Fleece main line. Got in for a shot, got to trade with Sidisi.
I think Dustin wants to get the Fleece main line off the table there because he's maybe a little scared of the monstrosity.
Well, yeah, he's also not potentially in a position to crack back the next turn, depending on what Oliver's follow-up is. And so, there's enough incentive for him to trade there. There's a lot of little reasons, even ignoring what could be going on in his hand. And it might be as simple as, well, I have another copy of CDC, so I'm going to trade here.
Sure. There's a forest. Update for you guys on our backup match. Peter Wynn with Mono Red Aggro up a game over Robert Vaughn and his Abzan control deck. Wynn was on the play. Game took a little bit longer, I think we expected, but was able to win game number 1. This year's Murder's got taking care of that Fleece main line. The follow-up is with Erebos, and that is the big card in the matchup.
Yep. And already some powerful stuff to be doing over there. You see Dragonlord Atarka and Sidisi, which both can generate a couple zombies and find the next wave of stuff to bring back.
Of course, you're going to come into the red zone. That zombie has no interest in blocking, so Taylor will take 2. Here's a Temple of Malady. Top card is a Lanimer Waste. It's going to become the bottom card, so we'll see a new card here for Oliver. That is a Satyr Wayfinder. He's got a Siege Rhino at the ready. Also has a Whip of Erebos of his own.
The top thing, it's pretty hard to cast the Siege Rhino into the maw of the Dragonlord Atarka that can just come back. I guess if Oliver has his own Whip of Erebos, then he can kind of do this because his stuff goes to the graveyard and that's fine. You can get it back later.
It is interesting because you're also playing against a deck that has Disdainful Stroke, and you know that.
Yeah, that's the other concern here is that if he's able to counter your Whip of Erebos on the way in or kill it or what have you, then that line of play is not great.
There's Whip activation. Dragonlord Atarka, trigger, kill your Siege Rhino, gain 5 life thanks to lifelink. Come in here for 10 points of damage, gain 10. Not bad.
Good swing there, kills the Siege Rhino to boot.
Siege Rhino on top of the deck now. Satyr Wayfinder, the draw. It's a small deck building edition, but I think it's smart.
the cost feels so low to me.
Yeah.
Because in long games, it is castable with Sylvan Carry added and Mana Confluence and Frontier Bivouac, and the power of being able to flip that thing over. You do see games with the Sultai Reanimator decks and the Abzan Reanimator decks as well, where all they're flipping over is just more Wayfinders and Coursers, and there's a lot of spots where even Siege Rhino is not that impactful of a card to be getting back. Same thing with Sidisi. So having some more hits in the deck, some Hornet Queen level haymakers, it's good to be able to fit those in if you can.
The upside is just really high.
There's also a guarantee of immediacy, which is not the same with Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
You can get back a Hornet Queen, and if your opponent has Bioblight, it's really bad news. But if you get back Dragon Lord Tarka, you can manage some of their board right away. Also much better at fighting against Planeswalkers. So it fits a different sort of role, even though it's sort of a similar functionality to Hornet Queen, which is just have another big thing.
Satyr Wayfinder here. Turn over a couple of cards. Utter End, Sidisi, Siege Rhino, all going to the graveyard. Windswept Teeth going to the grip. Reclamation Sage on top of the deck. And there's your answer to Whip of Erebos, Oliver. Play Windswept Teeth. Trigger up to 16. A Morph. Could be Den Protector. Also Deathmiss Raptor. Pass that turn back over to Taylor. Taylor will draw. Leave a copy of Dragon Lord Tarka.
Reclamation Sage is really bad news for Dustin here because it feels like Oliver's kind of winning the conventional resource battle right now. The edge that Dustin had is Whip of Erebos, and if that goes away, I think he's just losing on the board and in hand.
It is tough to argue as Satyr Wayfinder is going to turn over a couple of cards here. Yavimaya, Coast, Temple, Malady would be the options as far as lands are concerned. Freaky God of Affliction and Treasure Cruise are the cards that he has no option to take, so those immediately go to the graveyard. And Dustin opted for the land that enters the battlefield untapped in Yavimaya Coast.
And that's pretty bad news for Dustin because that's a lot of his high impact one-ofs in the sideboard. Farika and Treasure Cruise are both valuable cards here.
Here's a whip. There is Sidisi. You got a trigger. No zombie there, though. Here's an attack. He'll try again. Llanowar Waste. Murderous Cut. Satyr Wayfinder. He'll get a zombie there.
But all of this doesn't amount for very much once Whip of Erebos goes away.
Yep.
He's got some 2/2s in play and a 1/1, and that's really it.
And those 2/2s are checked very nicely by Courser. Got some life out of the exchange, too, but...
Matchup's not really about it
No.
at this point. Not really a damage racing matchup.
Reclamation saves the draw. Temple Malady on top of the deck.
And remember, Oliver still got his O-Whip in hand. Now, no guarantee he can get that resolved because he's playing against the Sameful Stroke, but he kind of has the whip advantage right now.
Temple went on the battlefield. We had a trigger from Courser. Scry as well. Forest on top of the deck.
I wonder if Oliver believes that Dustin's graveyard is low impact enough that he can go ahead and I guess this is the safer play. What I would do in his spot too, but I think there's an argument for maybe deploying the whip because there's not really a lot going on in Dustin's graveyard, and if that whip enters play while he can't Disable Stroke it, and then your Reclamation Stage comes on the following turn, maybe that's slightly more efficient. But I can also understand the instinct of just get that thing out of play while you know you can. Because that Reclamation Stage gets tagged with something like Thoughtseize or just something, happens, it's really bad news.
Yeah, depending on what the morph is, it could be really bad news. The assumption here is Den Protector.
Yeah.
I think that Deathmiss Raptor is probably out of his deck after sideboard.
It's not great, although if he's bringing in Fleece Mane Lion, there's more of an argument for just leaving in more of your beaters.
Sure. Three mana here from Taylor. Courser. Top card. Urborg. That's coming. Trigger. Gain a life up to 29. Let's see that next card, Dustin. Whip of Erebos. That's a gooder. Dustin will pass the turn back. Disdainful Stroke at the ready. Is it time to unmegamorph? Looks like it is. What will Oliver rebuy? Utter end.
Yep, just wants to make sure that he can check the Whip of Erebos that Dustin has, because Oliver is accumulating a pretty substantial resource advantage in a general sense. So Dustin needs to get to Whip of Erebos here to have some sort of trump. Keeps him off of that, things may become very easy. And that's the only whip left in Dustin's deck. He's only got the 2.
You're going to sacrifice Windswept Heath. On the upkeep, get a forest, stay neutral. As far as life is concerned, the draw will be Caves of Koilos here. He wanted to improve his draw. Wasn't able to do that. We'll see the next card, however, is another copy of Courser. His play has been extremely fluid. You can tell he knows what's important in the matchup.
Yeah. Also aware of deck list too, so he really wants to win that fight over Whip of Erebos, because at that point, Dustin's got to beat him straight up.
Devastator Wayfinder.
Suppose Soul of Innistrad is still a concern.
Wayfinder going to miss. Turns over Siege Rhino. Thoughtseize can be with the gods. Courser. Den Protector, the top card. It's always a pretty nice one to see. Oh, we're just going to pass the turn back. To Dustin we go. The top card here from now is Sidisi. Let's see what's next here for Taylor. Looking at a Doomwake Giant with the ability to leave up Disdainful Stroke. Also can just cast Dragonlord Atarka right now. I'm not sure how good it is in this situation.
Tapping out for Dragonlord Atarka is a little bit risky, because the Disdainful Stroke is the big thing keeping Oliver from being able to make some big play like Whip of Erebos. So I think Doomwake Giant does enough to the board while allowing Dustin to hold up Disdainful Stroke that this makes the most sense.
Yeah, it's not bad here. Get to get some attacks too. Of course we'll get the block there since it's a 1-3 after the trigger from Doomwake Giant. Den Protector, no interest in blocking and trading with something. There's Utter End. Peter Wynn, take it down.
Mono Red waiting to square off against one of these two.
Mm-hmm. Wins this matchup with Robert Vaughn, 2-0. Number 2 overall seed. Got to be licking his lips. See what's on this side of the table. We saw Tarka Red win the Pro Tour. We might see Mono Red Aggro win this
no
Open
green
Series.
splash, just mountains.
Yep. (29-13) here in favor of Taylor. But this game and who has control of it's still very much in the balance.
Yeah. The problem is that Oliver is getting to a point where he's got to kind of act soon and do something good, because he's just behind on the board and in life totals. You know, he can only take so many of these kind of turns that he had last turn, where he just kind of takes a big hit, loses some stuff. He's going to lose just a kind of conventional game of Magic that way.
There's 5 mana. Doomwake Giant. Disdainful Stroke. There's a Morph. We know it's Den Protector. Able to use the Windswept Heath for mana thanks to Urborg on Taylor's side of the table. It's always nice not to have to sacrifice that if you don't have to when you have Courser in play.
And that's a pretty big win there for Oliver, in that he was able to get the Disdainful Stroke out of Dustin's hand without losing something too critical. I'm sure he'd rather have Doomwake Giant than not.
Looks like Dustin's making his move. There's Dragonlord Atarka. Yep. The attacks are pretty good right now, too.
Yep. Dustin just trying to become a beatdown deck at this point before Oliver can get Whip of Erebos going and do anything of note with it.
Now Dustin will pass the turn back. Oliver's the one that's got some real catching up to do now. You mentioned he's kind of losing the conventional game of Magic now.
He's just getting beat up.
Going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath.
Part of that was because he was in a holding pattern for so many turns, trying to play around the Disdainful Stroke, trying to get in a spot where he can get Dustin's hand without losing the Whip of Erebos. And during those turns, Dustin was able to just kind of place himself on the board and attack.
Fleece main line on top of the deck. That'll be the draw. Now Oliver's got his window to play Whip of Erebos. But can he make the most of it? As it stands, doesn't look as though he has a card like Hornet Queen in the graveyard. Now he might be able to get there. And he's going to exploit.
Well, if he's able to go get a Murderous Cut here,
which he can.
then you got a good answer to Dragon Lord Atarka.
And he will. Hasn't played a land yet. Cut on top of the deck. There's Caves, gain a life. Pass the turn back. A little risky, maybe.
In what sense?
Disdainful Stroke?
Well, if he respects Whip of Erebos, then he can't kill Dragon Lord Atarka right now.
Sure.
He's got to wait for Dustin to get into combat.
Okay. Good point. And he knows about the whip. So
Yeah,
makes sense to wait.
He's just got to wait.
Yep. I think here comes whip, maybe. Maybe Taylor's going to wait. Attack first. We'll see. It's actually pretty tough to choose your spot here, especially when you know your opponent has Reclamation Sage in the graveyard.
Yeah, this is really tough because if Dustin loses this whip, that's it.
Yep.
He has no copies of something like Den Protector. He's only got 2 whips in the list. So he's got to make this one count, because if it gets killed, then he's got to, again, beat Oliver just kind of in a conventional game of Magic.
Dragon Lord Salumgar will be borrowing a Courser. Going to the attack step. There's the cut. Five damage going to be dealt, though. And doesn't have to take damage from Caves of Koilos to cut because of the Urborg being in play.
Yeah, his
Minor benefit.
His sequencing last turn was trying to maybe take it off of Dustin's radar a little bit, that Murderous Cut could have been on the table, because, you know, left up the Caves to sort of say, I would have to take a point of damage, and I could have easily tapped a different way, but that's just Urborg.
Cuts the draw for the turn, so Oliver does have an answer to Dragon Lord Slumgar, which is nice. Oliver going to reorganize some mana. Maybe being able to return a Siege Rhino is a nice buffer here.
Yeah, you can try to just do the Siege Rhino thing until Dustin gets to a spot where he plays his own whip, and then Dustin can get back Reclamation Sage. Try to buffer the life total a little bit here.
Start by casting Murderous Cut. Top card, Temple, Trigger. Up to 7. Arbor Colossus.
Arbor Colossus is not bad here.
No?
Any sort of just generic big thing is pretty good for Oliver.
Whip activation. Rhino, Trigger. Up to 10. Let's make it 14.
Now Oliver's got a nice little cushion here. He's not at immediate risk of just getting killed by Dragon Lord Atarka.
Yep. There's Fleece main line. Colossus will be on top of the deck. All right.
Oliver keeping his head above water.
Yeah.
You know, Dustin's still with some tools left over. He's got the whip and Sidisi on the Vizier, which is not great news for Oliver, but Oliver's at no immediate risk of dying right now, which is really important.
Torn Elemental, the top card of the deck now from Courser. I think we're going to see Sidisi here, potentially.
I mean, if I'm Dustin, I want to shut down this Whip of Erebos pronto.
Yep. Sacrifices Satyr Wayfinder thanks to Exploit. There's Rex Sage, and that's his plan. Whip of Erebos has been shut down.
And now that frees up Dustin's Whip of Erebos as well, because Oliver doesn't have access to his Reclamation Sage anymore.
Top card, Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Back and forth between these two has been really good.
Yep. I think right now Dustin has pulled ahead a little bit.
I think
but
so.
It's by no means over.
Temple of Malady. Top card goes to the bottom. Mana Confluence staring Dustin in the face now. He's at 29. Looks like he's happy enough to pass the turn back. Arbor Colossus the draw. Top card of the deck's Hero's Downfall. Arbor Colossus is going to be the play. You'll get a Fleece Mane Lion Monstrosity activation. You'll get Oliver passing the turn back over to Taylor. Taylor draws that Mana Confluence. Let's see that next card, Dustin. Courser of Crewfix.
Well, this is the position Dustin's been trying to get into for a while now, is his whip against no whip on the other side of the table.
And no answer. There's your activation. Dragonloader Tarka. We'll do 4 there, 1 to the Arbor Colossus. I think Dustin's seeing how much he can attack for now. He's at a comfortable life total. It's only going to be going up too.
I mean, he may be able to attack with everyone. Yeah, it looks like that's what he's doing, because there's a point of damage on the Arbor Colossus. So if that wants to block the Dragon Lord and Tarka, it's a trade.
And Tarka's so big as an 8/8.
And remember, Dustin and Oliver both know that Hero's Downfall is the draw next turn. So he's not, if Dustin sacrifices some of his board to deal damage here, it doesn't necessarily matter very much, because he knows that Oliver's not drawing something to swing the race back. It's just a kill spell.
Yeah, Oliver's going to take 11.
This line of play would be a little bit riskier if the top card was unknown and maybe it was some answer to Whip of Erebos. But Dustin knows that's not the case, so he can push very aggressively here.
Dustin wants to make sure he's got his life total correct because he's getting so much life. Thanks to Whip of Erebos. Sidisi got blocked by Fleece Mane Lion. It's indestructible, so Death Touch doesn't matter. Arbor Colossus still gets to hang around. Hero's Downfall the draw. Oliver will pass. Dustin knows everything he's got to be worried about. Arbor Colossus and its monstrosity. No Courser in play.
Yeah,
good stop right there by Oliver. Now Dustin's just trying to figure out is there anything? How do I lose this game? My opponent's at 2.
Well, he still knows about the downfall here, and so he has to be a little bit careful, because any flyer he gets back gets colded by the Arbor Colossus. And there's a downfall here, so if Dustin attacks with 3 creatures against 2, Oliver can survive by using downfall or something. So, Dustin has almost certainly got this short up here.
Dragonlord Silumgar will be the card that is whipped back. It's going to attempt to target Arbor Colossus.
Our first seed, Aaron Gazaniga. With 20 match points, our second place seed, Tanner Parente.
Might see a monstrosity activation here from Arbor Colossus. We do.
Points, Christopher Stinson.
That just cancels that out.
Yeah.
Attackers.
Jake Bartlett. Corey Abrams.
Block here, block there.
Yeah, I mean, this is all pretty face up right now.
Yep.
These are the blocks that Oliver has. He has to use his removal spell here.
So Dustin loses his entire board.
Just in front of the main event stage for your top 8. Legacy players, the final standings.
That comes as no surprise, so you have to imagine that Dustin is okay with those exchanges.
This information was all face up.
They are on yellow paper.
Here's Courser.
These standings are provisional.
cut on top of the deck, pass the turn.
This is pretty dangerous business here what Dustin did, because this was all face up and really didn't produce very much. And if Oliver can find a way to remove Whip of Erebos.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Oliver has another Den Protector left in his deck or not to get back his Reclamation Sage.
I think he's through his 2.
Okay. Arbor Colossus is going to battle on in here for 9. Disdainful Stroke, the top card. It's all about getting Whip off the table. If Oliver's able to get Whip off the table, he may have turned this entire thing around.
He may be out, and that might be one of the reasons that Dustin was pushing there. I guess he still has his own Whip in theory, but his Utter End's gone. His Reclamation Sage is gone.
His Den Protectors, we believe, are done.
Yeah, only 2 in the list.
Whip Sidisi. Try to win.
So this is, again, fine for Oliver if he's ripped a removal spell. He can get the Courser off the table, kill the Sidisi.
Bang. The follow-up now is Sidisi, I believe. Yep. No exploit here, so just a 4/6 body. Disdainful Stroke on top of the deck, pass the turn back. We're going to find out if Oliver's draw is good here in a moment.
Yeah, the last couple of turns, it felt like Dustin had the tools to cobble together a kill.
I think he maybe just got too hasty. Didn't get a great look at Oliver's draw. Can't attack, though. Murderous cut.
And now this is probably too much to overcome. I think Oliver drew a land, and if that's the case, then a Whip getting back anything is too much.
If Dustin's turns play this the way they have over the past couple,
Yeah,
which is him just trying to go for the win,
Yeah.
Disdainful Stroke may give him enough security to think it's good enough, and Oliver will concede the game. We'll see the top card of the deck. All right, there we go. Oliver and Dustin getting ready for a third game. That's what we expected more out of game number 1. A little bit slower affair.
Yeah, and that's with, even with Oliver bringing in the Fleecemane Lions, trying to be slightly more aggressive. Still went on for, about 30 minutes, which is what you would expect in this kind of matchup.
You see both players going to take a look at the sideboards here yet again. We can do the exact same. This is exactly what each player has access to. Oliver's going to be on the play here. We saw him bring in Fleecemane Lion for game number 2 when he was on the draw. Do you think they stay in for game 3?
Well, if you brought him in for the draw, I have to imagine that they're even better on the play.
Sure.
Or they have to be. So I don't imagine Oliver cutting them.
The other options there, of course, Master of the Unseen. Could be pretty good in a matchup like this. Much slower, drag it out of fair. Freak out Affliction. Both players ended up just not getting to use theirs. The Glare of Heresy, Utter End, Thoughtseize. Some Arbor Colossus actually pretty good in this matchup too. So some nice options for Oliver for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Master of the Unseen. I feel like the board gets trumped so fast, and Mastery is pretty cumbersome. That doesn't seem great to me, but it is a slow game, and if both people do not, if Whip of Erebos is not involved in the game, Mastery might just be another powerful long game tool to go to.
We'll see on Dustin's side. Hornet Queen, you have to imagine, is in there. Merciless Executioner, Reclamation Sage, we know is there. Soul of Innistrad, you have to imagine. Doomwake Giant, potentially. Disdainful Strokes, we know are there. So Ultimate Price for Rika, 2 Driving Stars, Thoughtseize, Treasure Cruise. Good options for him, too.
Yeah, we saw a lot of his late game cards there. Some of them got milled over, some of them were cast to good effect, but we know what he's bringing in here. He wants the counter spells, he definitely wants the card drawing, he wants his additional discard, and just things to battle over Whip of Erebos. So Reclamation Sage at the top of the list. Soul of Innistrad's very good in this matchup. It's just, trying to outgrind each other. And Oliver taking a slightly different tact, where he's trying to become slightly more aggressive, go to the Fleecemane Lions and hope that he can get an early start, back it up with Siege Rhinos, maybe keep Dustin off balance enough where Whip of Erebos doesn't come into play, and then Oliver just has a smoother, more streamlined deck.
Season 2 is what we are in here on the Open Series in 2015. Syracuse was won by Chris Van Meter. I think we all know that by now with his Green Red Dragons deck. Providence, well, it could be won by Peter Wynn. He's waiting in the finals here with Mono Red, going to play against either Oliver or Dustin. Who knows what's going to happen in Cleveland, though.
Yep, that's next week, and after that, we go to Portland. Now, keep in mind, this was the Open that was scheduled for Seattle. It's been moved to Portland. After that, we take a weekend off and then go to Dallas, back to Dallas, which was a huge Standard Open a few months ago. After that, we go to Worcester, Massachusetts for a Legacy Open Series. And then after that, the Season 2 Invitational in Columbus, Ohio. Modern and Standard as the Invitational formats. And a 2-day, $20,000 Modern Open Series event, June 5th through 7th, tied to the Origins Game Fair.
Of course, for all these dates, you can get yourself a Polar Punch playmat. It is our Season 2 playmat, given to all of our competitors in Syracuse, here as well. If you're going to be in Cleveland next week, and I hope you are, you can get that too. Sign up for the Open Series events. As you like to say, no strings attached. Pretty simple stuff.
Totally free. Don't have to do anything special. Don't have to be one of the first X people to register. You just get this as part of the package for playing in any of our Open Series events.
Available to everyone until May 23rd. So come on up to the Open Series next weekend, or any of the dates during Season 2 if you want to get that Polar Punch playmat, as we get ready here for game number 3 between Oliver Tomajko and Dustin Taylor. Again, Taylor, former Open Series champion, 2012, Standard Open in Providence, this same building. Got the job done with green-red aggro, beat plenty of blue-white Delver decks along the way before one Jerry Thompson made Restoration Angel a very good card in that deck, and then Dustin's deck was quickly invalidated. For Oliver, 14 years old, has made some deep runs in some Grand Prix, lost the finals of states last weekend, using this tournament as kind of a testing ground for his regional PTQ that he has next week to try to qualify for the Pro Tour. Plays a lot sharper than most 14-year-olds do.
I mean, he's the one who's telling Dustin over there, hey, don't flip over the top card of your deck. Your courser died last turn.
In a super complicated game.
Yep.
It's pretty impressive stuff. It's always good to watch players who are really skilled at Magic, and he's really skilled at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, my resume at 14 was sort of knew the rules.
Nice.
And 2-2 at a local tournament, I think, was about where I was at.
Mine was unbeatable at Mario Kart.
Which is actually not a bad thing to be unbeatable at.
Thank
Mario
you.
Kart's really fun.
Thank you very much. Really good with Koopa Troopa.
I always like the big stinky characters, all those games.
Of course you
I'm
do.
just a Bowser man.
Yeah, just a complete buffoon. Really nice. Just running into other people.
Yep.
Yeah. Bowser, Balrog in Street Fighter.
I'm a really big fan of any video game where I get to be Waluigi, by far the worst video game villain just ever.
Just no finesse to your game.
Yeah.
Just one way.
Just rolls right off the tongue. You know that Wario is a good name because Wario and Mario, they rhyme, right?
I do.
So it doesn't quite work the same way with Waluigi.
Take it up with their designers.
Smash Brothers, same deal. Just love the big, cumbersome, just super crappy guys.
Donkey Kong.
Love Donkey Kong, Bowser. I actually grew up playing with a circle of people who were very good, and I was bad. Always bad at those games. So what I tried to do was be the big characters that could take people and jump off the edge with them.
You know, what I like about Smash Brothers, that was also my strategy with Kirby, eat you, walk off the edge, make you really mad. What I like about Smash Brothers is it's actually perfectly fine to just suck at that game.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just so much fun.
Well, and that's actually that's a function of good game design. Magic's very similar. You can enjoy Magic and not be good at it. Because the game's just kind of fun and sweet, and, you know.
I was never good at Smash Brothers, never really wanted to be good, but it was just really fun to just torment my friends with Kirby.
Exactly.
Or like grab the hammer and just attack people.
This is where other games fail, is that it's not fun to be bad at it. Boxing. Not fun to be bad at boxing.
That's true. That's just bad game design.
It's not great.
That's what that is. If you're bad at boxing.
Boxing is low variance and not very much fun if you're bad at it. A couple other sports are similar.
UFC?
UFC very
Try
similar.
the same, yeah.
Low variance. Most fights, the best person wins.
True.
There is some variance in those kind of games because just a wild haymaker can knock people out.
Still
So
no fun when that happens.
Yeah.
When the variance occurs, it's not fun.
Well, you know, it's fun for one person.
Approximately one.
Yeah, but that's all you can hope for in a fight.
Boxing, just a nice low variance sport.
Low variance.
That's true. The youngster needs a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I think we will come back to us here very, very quickly because you don't want to stare at an empty chair.
No.
rather hang out with us and talk about
Ken
boxing
Crocker
being a
just in the-
low variance sport.
It is low variance.
I'm
Well,
not arguing
variance
with
is
you.
a thing that occurs in sports. Not all sports are the same in terms of variance.
Fully aware. Fully aware. Just very intelligent of you to kind of notice that. I would have
Yeah.
never noticed that unless you said something.
It's true.
That's very, very true.
Usually it has to do with the scoring systems. Can make things more or less variance. But also the fact that, you can get knocked out and it's really hard to defend yourself from that. That's a form of variance as well.
That's true. That's true. That's why I don't participate in boxing.
Right, exactly.
I don't really have much interest
It's not
in
that
doing
much fun if you're bad, and that's actually there's a lot of games that are like that in not in the boxing sphere, but just in video games in general, and that's why a lot of those games are less popular than things like Mario Kart or Smash Brothers, or things that you can enjoy even if you're not very good at it.
It's true.
These lessons translate from it's not game design in video games and game design in board games and game design in real life fighting human being games. It's all game design kind of is interwoven.
It's kind of a life lesson.
Yeah,
You think
it's
about
a lot. There's a lot to learn.
We're going to talk about Grand Prix Charlotte really quickly here while we do wait for Oliver to return, because the Grand Prix is taking place sooner than you think. June 12th through the 14th, excuse me. Some details we'll go over very quickly. If you haven't seen it yet, shame on you, because it's going to be a great tournament.
And by sooner than you think, remember that we just went over the Season 2 schedule. It's the shortest season of the year. And this comes the week after the Invitational in Columbus. So it's going to be here a lot sooner than you anticipate.
You come play, you sign up, what do you get? Basic registration rewards, some pretty sweet stuff. It's all guaranteed. See it right here.
So the art is, as of yet, not revealed. It is a fan favorite returning in Modern Masters 2015. It'll be on the playmat, the sleeves, the deck boxes, and the pins that we're giving out. If you recall Grand Prix New Jersey and the treatment we did with Brainstorm, much the same deal here. We'll announce this very soon.
Artistes, would you like to have your card signed? No problem. Just two of the very best.
Therese Nielsen and Volkan Baga, Force of Will, Guru Land, Siege Rhino you see here on the screen. Two artists who do not come out for a lot of events. Anticipate a line, but if you're looking to get some iconic Magic cards autographed, Grand Prix Charlotte's a great opportunity.
There's two, but we got five more. Noah Bradley, Clint Kearley, Eric Deschamps, Mark Poole, and the working man's artist who I believe was at Grand Prix Krakow this weekend.
Yeah.
Arcade Post.
I'm sure he's already hitchhiking to Charlotte or however he gets around to all these different events, but this is our Artist Alley. We're happy to bring many of these people to Charlotte. Many of them we've had here before in various capacities at Grand Prix and Opens and so forth, and we're very excited. A lot of modern staples you see here on the screen. Plenty of opportunities for autographs.
More details, however, because we're trying something new here. It's called our Infinite Challenge Badge.
So we run these 4-round challenge events, and they're very popular. And if you're not looking to compete in the main event, or maybe the main event doesn't go very well for you, but you still want to participate in some tournaments, you can get these Infinite Challenge badges. For $40, you get a one-day badge that comes with the side event voucher. For $100, you get a 3-day badge, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that comes with 2 side event vouchers and the Grand Prix playmat. So if you're looking to get the playmat and play all weekend long, but maybe you don't have a modern deck, or maybe you're intimidated by the size of the Grand Prix, or whatever the case may be, the 3-day badge, a great opportunity to still get the playmat.
Grand Prix nowadays, because they're so big, it's not always about the main event. Some players just want to kind of hang out and play in some tournaments. That's what this is for. But you can also go and customize your experience, which is something I really like with this new tiered registration.
Exactly. If you're on a budget or you're just looking for the bare bones experience, we have the bronze level for $60. That comes with, of course, entrance to the main event, the playmat, foil crystal brand, and 1 month of Star City Premium. That goes from silver to gold all the way up to the VIP experience, which comes with all that stuff you see on the screen there, 3 packs of sleeves, 2 side event vouchers, a year of premium, extra deck boxes, pins, foil, SCG live tokens, VIP access, which you're probably familiar with from our other Grand Prix, more stuff to come. So however you want to have this experience, whatever your budget is, you can scale it up to your desire.
Grand Prix Charlotte, June 12th through the 14th. Pre-register now, get it out of the way. You know you're probably going to come, so don't wait, especially when you want to get VIP, because that will be limited. StarCityGames.com/GP Charlotte for more information.
Head over to the website right now. We are ready to take your registration.
Give us your money. Please. Please. Game number 3. Oliver Tomajko, Dustin Taylor, Obzon Reanimator, Sultai Reanimator. Dustin won game 2, so Oliver will be able to play here for game number 3. We think Fleet's main lines will still be in the deck. We think.
If they were in on the draw, I have to believe they're in on the play.
Gotta give those beat downs. I wonder if drawing first in this matchup is a good idea.
I think you can just get behind on the board. If you're playing just game 1 and Whip of Erebos is basically uncontested, I think there's more of an argument. Games 2 and 3 where people can interact with Whip of Erebos more regularly, can get out of your hand more often, can counter it, can kill the Reclamation Sage. the game may become just a little bit more tempo-oriented. And we see in Game 2 there, Oliver just went to Fleece Main line. He's trying to normalize his deck a little bit. So I don't think you can draw in the post-board games. You may be able to draw if you know that you're playing the mirror match Game 1, but I think that changes post-board.
Dustin going to take a mulligan out of 6 cards here. Dustin on a 23 land build of this deck. I don't like flooding, but I always want to have lands. I want a 24th land in this deck. I like this deck a lot. I really do.
It's hard for me to get behind a bunch of mana creatures, Courser, Crufix, and a low land count. I understand this deck is powerful, just there are elements that are kind of nails against a chalkboard for me. They just don't read right. But I understand what the point is. You want to play with a lot of creatures, and you need to get stuff in your graveyard. And there's all these competing interests that balance the deck out to where it's at. But I do agree with you. In an ideal world, I would play an extra land or two.
Seems to be whenever we see this deck really lose, it's always because it has mana issues.
Well, the other way that it loses is it has nothing to prime the pump. It has no way to get stuff in the graveyard, and then you're just playing a bad Soul Tie or a bad Obzon control deck.
Well, that doesn't look like a happy face here for Dustin. He might be stuck having to keep a bad one now.
It's a lot tougher, too, now with Oliver having the Fleece Main lines in the deck. If it's just a Whip of Airboast battle, you can mulligan pretty aggressively looking for hands that are about what the matchup's about. It's much harder to go down to 5 when your opponent might just go Fleece Main line, Siege Rhino, kill you before you get anything started.
Yeah, play more of like an Obzon aggro deck.
Yeah, he can just, Oliver's trying to set himself up to just play more of a normal game of Magic than he did in Game 1.
And Dustin giving this a long thought on if he wants to keep or not. Does not seem thrilled with the contents here at all. Take a mulligan here. Down to 5 we go.
Ken Crocker enjoying his first show running solo here.
Yep. He runs a couple different color outfits, as do I. I'm curious to see if he has a bow tie that goes with every color outfit. So far, it's been proven that he does.
I like to keep it kind of muted, you know?
Well, I understand that. I like someone who likes some flash and flare. As Kid Rock would say. I'm sorry.
As well known.
I'm really
Poet
sorry.
laureate Kid Rock said.
I'm really sorry I said that.
I didn't know that you celebrated that man's catalog. Did not know that.
But I celebrate everybody's catalog.
Yeah, I guess so.
I got a real wide range.
Kid Rock is, that's about as wide as it goes.
It's Mr. Rock to you. Okay. Detroit's finest. Self-proclaimed American badass. Kid Rock. Has Dustin found a better 5?
I think you're allowed to call yourself that once you're making millions of dollars.
Can't you?
I think that should be a rule.
I think everything's off the table when your first single is called Ba with to Ba. You're not really following any rules anymore.
Sure, it's just, you know.
That's not even a word. Temple of Malady will start things off. Oliver's going to leave that card on top. Dustin kept his 5. Thoughtseize, down to 17. Fleece Main line is there. Satyr Wayfinder is 2, along with Hero's Downfall. Looks to be Ultimate Price, an Urborg, and a Forest.
Well, this is a hand without white mana, so Dustin has the option here of tagging the Satyr Wayfinder and leaving him with just a removal spell and uncastable Fleece Main line. That gives Dustin a lot of time to draw out.
You do wonder what he kept on top with the Temple.
True.
Maybe a white source of mana, maybe not. Maybe just a good card in the
Yeah,
matchup.
it could just be a good card if his plan on turn 2 is just to cast the Wayfinder regardless.
Dustin was scared, though, going to take the Fleece Main line.
Now I want to know.
It was Sidisi.
Yep. So yeah, he just kept a generic good card on top.
Siege Rhino, Arbor Colossus, Sandstorm Citadel, Forest. Give me that tri-land.
That's really good news there for Oliver, because if Dustin went ahead and tagged the Wayfinder, Oliver's hand's quite poor.
Let's go back Dustin's way. Pluto Delta and a pass. Oliver will draw. Farika, God of Affliction. Here's an attack for 1.
Very nice pairing with his last play, previous turn there, getting a little bit of action in the graveyard.
Urborg, Farika. Pass it back. Taylor will draw. An Urborg of his own. There's the land. Pass it over. We're going back to Tomajko's way. Courser of Crewfix.
Oliver running off some nice draws here. Last couple turns.
That's for sure.
You know, opponent on 5 cards, you like to get the game over as fast as possible. Farika and Courser do a lot of good work as far as that goes.
Here is Courser. Let's see that top card. Siege Rhino. Sandstep Citadel. Trigger up to 21.
And all these cards also pair very nicely with the Sidisi that Oliver left on top of the deck earlier on. He's going to have some expendable creatures to throw away.
His draws come together really well. Here's a Satyr Wayfinder. Take a look at the top couple of cards here for Dustin. Opulent Palace is 1, Courser is 2, Temple is 3, Sylvan Curiated is number 4. Dustin thinking about taking the Palace. Might go with the Temple, however. Going to consult his hand really quickly. We'll go with the Temple. Sacrifice the Delta? Maybe not yet. Does have a Murderous Cut in hand, so he's got some things to think about. Take a look at the top card here.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do anything with that right now because of the Urborg on the other side of the table. And this might be one of those every point matters sorts of games on Dustin's side, so no reason to do anything preemptively.
That top card's going to go to the bottom. Taylor will pass. Over to Oliver we go. Siege Rhino the draw, Temple of Malady on top of the deck. Temple will enter the battlefield. Top card's a Den Protector. Den Protector looks like it's going to stay on top. Siege Rhino, well, we know that's going to resolve. No one-man counterspell here. And you better kill that thing because Farika would have been live. Here comes an attack for 3. Of course, able to tap the Delta for mana thanks to the Urborg being in play on Oliver's side. And actually, Dustin has one too, so.
I'm not sure if I like the attack with the Wayfinder here because Oliver has the DC in hand. Feels like he's probably not happy if Dustin trades. I know it goes to the graveyard, you have a Farika in play, but there's plenty of other creatures for Oliver to work with.
9 more waste to draw. Taylor going to sacrifice his Pluto Delta. He'll get a basic island. Over an hour into this match. One man waiting patiently. That's Peter Wynn. Wants to know who he's going to be playing against. Perhaps it's Dustin Taylor and his Sidisi's. Got a trigger here. 1 is Murderous Cut. 2 is Pluto Delta. 3 is a DC, Undead Vizier, so a zombie will be joining. There's a copy of Llanowar Waste and a passing of the turn. We'll head back Oliver's way. Commune with the gods, the top card of the deck.
And Sean Morgan.
Den Protector, Sidisi, Ultimate Price, Hero's Downfall. All cards are, in Tomajko's hand.
And Oliver with a lot of different options here, a lot of control over the pacing of the game. I think it looks like he's gripping the Hero's Downfall. I also think there's an argument for Den Protector face down. If Dustin goes ahead and attacks with the Sidisi, you have the opportunity to make a token with Farika and block. Looks like he's just going with the Downfall play.
Here's an attack. Still has the ability to make a token with Farika here. Ultimate Price too.
And I think the motivation for Oliver making this play is he gets into the 2 points this turn. He gets to make a token. It's probably hard for Oliver to block, and he has the ability to Den Protector back the Siege Rhino and maybe finish off Dustin before he gets much going.
Here's Sidisi number 2. Frontier Bivouac, Satyr Wayfinder, Dragonlord Atarka, Zombie coming. There that is. Pass that turn. Here comes a snake. Satyr Wayfinder will be removed from the game. And there's your snake token from Farika. Oliver will untap, draw the Commune with the Gods. Top card of the deck is Courser of Crewfix.
Courser, an important card here as Oliver is approaching having the devotion requirement for Farika. 4 in play, and then 2 on top of the deck, so he's able to generate 1 out of his hand. He's got plenty of options for that between Den Protector and Sidisi.
Might be Sidisi time. Looks like it is. That'll resolve. Sacrifice the token. See what he wants to search up. Looks like Murderer's Cut. Could be Whip of Erebos, too. A lot of really good targets.
Yep. I think Whip of Erebos, Murderous Cut, Doomweight Giant, Siege Rhino. There's arguments for a variety of cards at this stage.
He's considering them all right now. See the cards that he brings forward. Get an idea into the thought process here. Looks like he's going to go with Cut. See if he's able to find an untapped land on top of the deck. It's a Fleeceman line. Pass that turn over to Taylor. We draw. Just a forest.
And now Dustin's at the minimum got to threaten the ability to break up Oliver's board, because if not, it's a lock here that Oliver's going ultimate with, or going to full devotion next turn rather with Farika.
And we can call that the ultimate for Farika.
With
Might as well
Dustin
be.
at 6, and Farika being indestructible, a 4/6 Death Toucher. The likelihood that Oliver tutored for a removal spell last turn.
Looks like Dustin has a question for the judge. So we'll see what this will be here in just a moment. Oliver is sitting pretty right now, though, that's for sure. In a really good spot. Tutored up a Murderous Cut last turn as well.
Still Den Protector in hand, so as long as Dustin can't get access to Whip of Erebos and can't gain life, Oliver only needs to get a couple chip shots, and then there's a good chance that the Siege Rhino in his graveyard finishes things off. Worst comes to worst.
Bunch of manas. Dragonlord Slumgar. Time to attack. Trigger. Hero's Downfall. Whip of Erebos. Opulent Palace. Quick block. Pass it over. Siege Rhino top card.
And Oliver definitely paid off for getting a removal spell here, as Dragonlord Slumgar was one of the big draws that Dustin had access to here.
Yep.
If he got sloppy, he didn't have a removal spell, Dustin could have turned this around.
Oliver actually has a pretty nice turn in front of him, depending on which route he wants to go. Has the ability to have Fleeceman line this turn. Murder's Cut the Dragonlord Slumgar, get his Sidisi back, which a turn on his Farika. One of many, many options for him.
Yeah, could have the mana left over to make a token 2 and leave up ultimate price.
Yeah. Certainly smart to weigh them all right now. Commune with the Gods in hand. Den Protector is a morph. Looks like he may consider starting with Commune with the Gods. But again, a lot of options.
Well, this seems like the easiest place to start. Let's get Dragonlord off the table.
Yep. That part's done. Now he's going to turn on Farika. Red zone. I think offering up Courser here? Actually, I do, because he has ultimate price in hand.
Yeah.
Never mind. Stop myself right there. He's not offering anything up, actually.
And if Dustin wants to take 5 also, even if there was an ultimate price involved,
Yeah.
I don't mind offering it up.
He's going to chump block Farika, take 2, pass it over.
Knock him down to 1 when you have a Farika in play.
Yeah.
Good spot to be in.
All I can do is extend the hand. Oliver Tomajko is going to win this match over Dustin Taylor, 2-1. Obzon Reanimator on to the finals. It's impressive play from the 14-year-old.
Not really much going on with the graveyard there. A lot of that had to do with Dustin's mulligan down to 5, but Oliver able to win kind of just a straight-up game. A lot of power on his side of the table. Dustin never really ever got anything going.
No, not at all. Mulligan to 5 untimely there for Dustin. Some really good magic, I think, played on both sides. A long match as we expected. And the first game was a lot shorter than expected, but the 2 lengthy games, you can see, both players having a pretty sound understanding of what they're trying to accomplish in the matchup.
Exactly. The game is quite a bit of chess. There's a lot of face-up information. There's a lot of spots where there's maybe 1 or 2 cards in the opposing deck you really need to be concerned with it, and most of it can be ignored. So understanding kind of the tiers of engagement, what matters at what stage, is really important to play in matchups like this. And both of these players demonstrated that information.
They both played very well, but only one could win. That is Oliver Tomajko, who is moving on to the finals after defeating Dustin Taylor 2-1.